In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, light poured from tall crystal pillars and reflected across walls of gold and silver. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in their seats, their faces proud, their voices sharp, and their laughter cruel. The topic of the day was humanity. The council had gathered to decide how much trust, trade, and power the humans of Earth deserved among the stars. One tall alien with skin like polished stone rose to speak. His words cut through the hall like a blade. Humans, he said, are nothing more than children who found fire. They stumble into space with weak ships and weak weapons, and they dare to demand a seat here. Laughter echoed as claws tapped, wings flapped, and tentacles slapped the tables in amusement. Another alien leader, her eyes glowing bright yellow, leaned forward and hissed, "They are loud, they are reckless, and they believe themselves clever. But we all know, their little world is nothing compared to our empires. They have no fleet, no great weapons, and no history of true power. They are insignificant." The words were followed by more cruel laughter, louder this time, filling the hall with arrogance. Some smaller species shifted in their seats, uncomfortable with the mockery, but none dared speak. Humanity had been mocked since the first day they walked into this shining chamber, and today was no different. One council member, a massive creature with tusks that scraped the air, slammed his hand on the table and declared, "We must teach them their place. Let them know they are nothing more than visitors here, begging at our door." The council cheered. Pride swelled. Their arrogance grew with every word. The humans were not present to defend themselves. No human ambassador had been invited to this meeting. Instead, the council chose to speak of them as if they were a joke, a mistake, a shadow not worth notice. In truth, the council feared change. They had ruled for centuries, their laws unchallenged, their fleets unmatched. Humanity was new, unpredictable, and worst of all, unafraid. But the council wrapped their fear in laughter and hid it under mockery. They believed numbers would always protect them. They believed their fleets were eternal. They believed no young race could ever rise high enough to shake their throne. Yet deep in the void, far from the Golden Hall, sensors whispered. Distant outposts picked up faint signals. Unusual energy patterns flickered across the dark. A few nervous voices tried to report it, but their warnings were silenced by the council's pride. "It is nothing," one counselor said with a wave of his jeweled hand. "Perhaps a broken satellite, or a wandering pirate ship. Humanity has no fleet. They have no weapons strong enough to trouble us." His words calmed the hall, and the laughter returned, though weaker now, as if a shadow had fallen over the gold and silver walls. In the far corner, a young alien aide dared to whisper to his master, "But what if it is true? What if humans have built something greater?" The master struck him silent with a glare. "Fool," he growled, "humans cannot build what we cannot imagine. They are insects crawling in the dirt of their small world." The aide bowed his head, but his heart kept beating faster. In his mind, he remembered the way humans looked when they first walked into the council chamber years ago. Their eyes were sharp, filled with fire, filled with something no other race carried so strongly, defiance. He remembered thinking then that perhaps laughter was a poor shield against such fire. Back in the Grand Hall, the debate turned to insults, the speeches turned to mockery, and the council roared with pride. They did not see the danger rising. They did not hear the whisper of engines in the void. They did not feel the pulse of a warship drawing closer. They believed the galaxy belonged to them and always would. They believed humanity would always kneel. But far away, a shadow moved among the stars, larger than any ship they had ever built, silent but unstoppable. And when it arrived, the council's arrogance would shatter like glass. Rumors began to spread like fire across the trade routes of the galaxy. At first it was only whispers, quiet words exchanged by pilots and merchants who traveled through the empty dark. They spoke of a shadow moving between the stars, a vessel larger than any they had ever seen, a ship with strange energy glowing across its hull. Some said it was human. Others laughed and called it a trick, a lie, a dream born from fear. But the stories grew stronger each day. A scout ship returned with shaky recordings, half burned by static, showing only a glimpse of something massive passing through the void. Its shape was sharp, its outline heavy with power, and its engines glowed with a color no alien could name. The crew of that scout ship swore it was human, but the council dismissed the report as false. In the great hall, the leaders laughed again. A human warship? One alien sneered. They barely have ships that can leave their own system. Do not insult us with such fantasies. Yet outside the council's golden walls, unease spread. Smaller species who lived under the shadow of the council began to whisper their hope. If humans had truly built a warship stronger than all others, perhaps the balance of power could finally change. The council had ruled for centuries, demanding tribute, demanding silence, crushing any who resisted. A warship of humanity could mean freedom for the weak, and that thought was dangerous enough to plant seeds of rebellion. In the markets of distant stations, in the bars of mining colonies, in the lonely decks of cargo ships, beings whispered of the humans who were once mocked, and how they might now rise with fire in their hands. The council, arrogant as always, crushed every report with scorn. They ordered officials to declare the rumors false. They claimed the recordings were tricks of light, distorted images, or lies spread by smugglers. Still the rumors refused to die. Every week another scout saw strange readings. Every month another ship vanished near the border of human space. Strange energy signatures spread like ripples in the void, and even council scientists began to notice. Some dared to suggest that perhaps humanity had made a leap in technology, something no one expected, something no one believed possible. But the council silenced them with threats and anger. Humans cannot do what we cannot, one counselor shouted. They cannot build what we cannot imagine. End this foolishness. Yet fear lived quietly in their eyes, even as their voices grew louder. In the deep corridors of power, a few council members whispered in secret. What if it is true? They asked one another. What if humans have created something beyond us? What if their warship is real? None dared speak such questions aloud in the Golden Hall, for pride was the armor of the council, and arrogance their only shield. But beyond their chamber, ships across the stars kept reporting strange encounters. One mining vessel swore they saw the warship drifting silently through a nebula, its hull black as night, its lights burning like suns. They tried to send a message, but their signal was swallowed by static, and when they returned to their colony, the warship was gone. Another freighter swore they were followed for days by something vast, a presence that never fired, never spoke, but lingered just beyond sight, like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. Panic began to stir in the shadows of the galaxy. Ordinary traders started avoiding human borders. Small empires began recalling their fleets. Some even sent spies to Earth, desperate to confirm the truth. What they found shocked them. Human space was quiet, too quiet. No great fleets were seen, no public displays of power, no announcements of a new weapon. Humanity remained silent, as if daring the galaxy to doubt them. This silence became the loudest threat of all. The council's pride began to crack, though they tried to hide it. In their private meetings, they spoke of the need to investigate, the need to send warships to confirm the truth. But every time they prepared to act, new reports arrived, darker and more troubling. A patrol fleet of 5 ships vanished near a lonely star. All sensors went black. The last recording was a shadow moving fast, far too large to be explained. Families wept, colonies demanded answers, and the council stood frozen, unwilling to admit what the galaxy already suspected. Humanity had built something, and it was out there, watching, waiting. Still the council mocked in public, still they laughed to hide their fear, but even as their words filled the Golden Hall, their hands trembled. For in the void, a warship moved silently, and with every rumor, with every whisper, with every frightened report, its legend grew stronger. The day was coming when the council would no longer be able to laugh. The day was coming when the shadow would step into the light, and their arrogance would finally be tested. The day finally came when the shadow stepped out of rumor and into reality. On the edge of council space, near a cold and empty star system, the sensors of an alien patrol screamed with sudden warning. At first the officers thought it was a mistake, a glitch in their machines, but then the screens cleared and the image appeared. Something massive floated at the edge of the system, dark against the stars, its hull glowing faintly with lines of energy that pulsed like a living heartbeat. The patrol captain, a veteran of many battles, felt his voice dry in his throat as he whispered, "That is no ship we know." His crew stared, their bodies stiff with fear. The vessel was shaped like a blade, sharp edges cutting through the void, its engines silent but its presence heavy like a mountain in space. For a long moment it did nothing, simply watching, as if measuring the smaller ships before it. The patrol quickly sent a signal to the council, their message filled with fear, but before the reply could come, the warship moved. With one slow turn it faced the patrol, and though no weapons fired, the alien crews felt as if the stars themselves had turned against them. The silence was worse than any attack. One officer cried out, demanding to open fire, but the captain stopped him. His instincts screamed that a mistake would mean their end. Instead they waited, holding their breath, hearts pounding, and then the ship spoke. A single transmission cut across their channels, clear and cold, in a voice that was undeniably human. "We warned you." That was all. No threats, no demands, only those 3 words, and then silence again. The patrol crew froze, unsure if they had imagined it. But the signal was real. The words carried weight, as if they were not spoken only to a few ships, but to the entire galaxy. The alien captain tried to respond, his claws shaking over the controls, but no reply came. The human warship simply turned away, drifting slowly back into the dark, leaving the patrol alive but broken in spirit. They quickly transmitted everything they had seen, the images, the readings, and the voice. Within hours the recordings spread like wildfire across council space. The council called an emergency meeting, their golden hall filled with fear hidden under anger. "It is a trick," one shouted, though his voice shook. "It cannot be real. A single ship cannot defy us." Another argued, "But you heard the voice. You saw the readings. That ship is beyond anything we know." Panic swept through the smaller species, who began whispering louder now, hoping, praying that the humans had built something powerful enough to stand against their arrogant masters. The council tried to calm the storm, declaring the warship a myth, but the truth had already taken root. The image of that massive vessel, silent and unstoppable, spread through every colony, every outpost, every trade lane. Merchants spoke of it, miners dreamed of it, and warriors feared it. It had not fired a single shot, yet it had already shaken the galaxy. The council ordered fleets to prepare, their pride demanding they show strength, but deep inside they knew the balance had shifted. For the first time in centuries, the council was afraid. The arrogance that once filled their voices now cracked like old stone, and behind their mocking words, terror grew. In the quiet corners of the hall, a few dared to whisper what none wanted to hear. If one warship exists, then more may follow. If they have built one, then they can build many. And if they can build many, then the age of the council is ending. Those whispers carried truth, but the council ignored them, for arrogance was easier than fear. Yet out in the void, the human warship drifted, patient as a predator, watching, waiting, and every moment it remained unseen, the terror of its return grew greater. The galaxy now knew it was real, and the first contact with fear had begun. The council could no longer ignore what the galaxy had seen, and so they gathered again in their golden hall, this time not to laugh but to argue, to shout, to roar with fear and pride mixed together. The image of the human warship burned in their minds, its sharp shadow still haunting every speech and every thought. Some members begged for caution, their voices trembling as they warned of unknown danger, but the loudest voices were filled with anger, demanding action. "We are the council," one leader thundered, slamming his clawed hand against the table. "We rule the stars. We will not bow to a single human ship. If they dare to stand before us, we will crush them as we crushed others before." The hall erupted in cheers from the arrogant majority, though many of the smaller species looked away, uncertain. The council had grown too proud, too used to forcing obedience with fleets and weapons, and they believed numbers would always decide victory. So they made their plan, a plan not to talk, not to test, but to challenge the warship directly. They ordered a fleet of 1,000 ships, drawn from every corner of Council space, to gather at the border of human territory. This fleet was the largest ever seen in one place, a storm of metal and fire, carriers and cruisers, battleships and escorts, enough to crush any enemy, or so they believed. As the orders spread, soldiers cheered and captains boasted, claiming the humans would finally learn their place. Yet beneath the bravado, unease gnawed at many hearts. Reports from scouts told of the warship's strange silence, of its refusal to attack, of its calm and patient movements, and some feared that silence hid something far more deadly than open war. But pride drowned out reason. The fleet gathered, filling the void with lines of ships stretching as far as the eye could see, their lights burning like stars of their own. Admirals spoke with arrogance, promising quick victory, promising to destroy the human threat in a single strike. In the council hall, the leaders smiled, their fear buried under pride, declaring that the humans would be humiliated, their arrogance shattered before the galaxy. Still, whispers of doubt spread among the people. Miners, traders, and colonists remembered the rumors, remembered the first transmission, remembered the words, "We warned you." Many wondered if the council was marching not to victory but to disaster. On the eve of battle, when the fleet had fully assembled, their sensors detected movement. From the darkness, the human warship emerged once again. It appeared slowly, as if it had been waiting all along, its massive form gliding into the center of space with calm certainty. 1,000 alien ships faced one human vessel, and yet silence filled the void. The admirals laughed at first, confident in their numbers, confident that one ship could not stand against such overwhelming force. "They are fools," one admiral sneered. "They bring one ship to face 1,000. We will erase them from the stars." Orders were given, weapons primed, shields raised, fleets aligned. The void crackled with the energy of 1,000 guns waiting to fire. But then the warship moved, its hull glowing with strange light, lines of energy racing across its surface like veins filled with fire. For a moment, every alien heart faltered, though no shot had yet been fired. The warship seemed alive, more like a force of nature than a machine, and its silence was louder than their war cries. It sent one final transmission, a voice clear and cold, carrying across every channel, every ship, every crew. "You mocked us. You threatened us. Now you will see us." Then the signal ended, and the void went still. The admirals barked commands. The fleets prepared to unleash their fury, and in that moment the greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen was about to begin. The void exploded with light as the first wave of council ships opened fire, thousands of beams and missiles streaking across the darkness toward the lone human warship, a storm of energy so great it blinded sensors and shook the silence of space itself. And for a moment the admirals smiled, certain of victory, certain that nothing could survive such fury, but when the smoke and fire cleared their pride turned to horror, for the human vessel still floated untouched, its hull glowing faintly, with shifting patterns of energy, as if the galaxy's weapons had been nothing more than raindrops on stone. Panic rippled through the fleets as captains shouted, ordering second and third volleys, filling the void with endless fire. But again the result was the same. The warship absorbed it all without a scratch, its silent defiance heavier than any attack. Then, without warning, it struck back. A single beam of light erupted from its side, not bright and chaotic like alien weapons, but sharp and focused like a blade of pure energy. The beam cut across the void, and in one instant an entire enemy formation of 50 ships vanished, erased as if they had never existed. Silence fell for a heartbeat, then the screams began. Crews cried out across channels, admirals shouted commands, fleets scrambled to move, but the warship glided forward slowly, calmly, like a predator walking into a herd of prey. It fired again, another beam, and another fleet of ships disappeared, their wreckage turning into glowing dust. The galaxy had never seen such destruction. Weapons that once decided wars now meant nothing. Shields that once lasted for hours shattered in seconds. Ships that had stood proud for centuries fell like leaves in a storm. Terror spread faster than orders, and many crews broke ranks, fleeing into the dark, but flight was useless, for the warship's weapons reached across distances no alien cannon could dream of. Admirals tried to rally their soldiers, shouting that numbers would prevail, that the humans could not fight forever, but their words cracked with fear, for the warship had not slowed, had not weakened, had not even shown effort. With every strike, hundreds died, thousands vanished, and the balance of power shifted with terrifying speed. In the council hall, leaders watched the live feeds in silence, their golden pride crumbling as they saw their mighty fleets torn apart like paper. Some shouted in rage, demanding the admirals fight harder, while others sat frozen, realizing the truth, that they had awakened something they could not control. Back in the battle, the human warship finally spoke again, its voice echoing across every channel, across every mind. "We warned you, but you laughed. We warned you, but you mocked. Now you will understand." Those words carried the weight of doom, and even the most fearless warriors felt their courage turn to ash. Entire fleets began to surrender, dropping their weapons, shutting down their systems, praying the warship would spare them. But the vessel showed no mercy, not yet. It fired again and again, each strike a judgment, each blast a reminder that humanity was no longer weak. The sky lit with fire as the once mighty armada shrank to nothing, their numbers melting away until only fragments remained, broken and scattered across the void. When at last the warship stopped, the silence was worse than the battle. Wreckage drifted through space, glowing with dying sparks, while survivors whispered in disbelief, unable to accept what they had seen. One ship, one single human warship, had destroyed the largest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled, and it had done so without strain, without pause, with a calmness that turned fear into legend. The council's pride shattered in that moment, but the warship remained, its engines quiet, its weapons dim, waiting, watching, daring anyone to try again. The first strike had ended, but its echo would shake the stars forever. The galaxy trembled in the silence that followed the battle, the wreckage of 1,000 ships drifting like broken bones through the cold dark, and the council's arrogance lay shattered among them, their pride crushed by the single human warship that had stood alone and proven stronger than all their fleets combined. In the grand hall of gold and crystal, the councilors sat frozen, their voices stolen by fear, their faces pale as the images of destruction replayed again and again across the great screens. Some leaders wept in disbelief, some shouted in rage, and some simply stared, unable to understand how their centuries of dominance had ended in a single day. The smaller species who once bowed in silence now whispered loudly, their eyes filled not with fear of the council but with hope in the humans who had stood against them. Whispers spread like fire, "The humans have power beyond measure. The humans cannot be mocked anymore. The humans are not weak, they are saviors." The words echoed through stations, colonies, and cities across the stars, and everywhere the grip of the council began to weaken. No longer did the people look at the council with respect. Now they saw only failure, only weakness, only leaders who had been too arrogant to see the truth. The council tried to speak, tried to claim the battle was only one mistake, that the humans had tricked them, that the warship was some forbidden weapon stolen from ancient ruins, but their words rang hollow, for the truth was too heavy to be denied. The human warship was real, it had destroyed the greatest fleet ever assembled, and it was still out there, silent and watching, like a blade pressed against their throats. Some council members demanded immediate surrender to humanity, begging that peace be sought before another warship appeared, but others clung to their pride like drowning men clutching broken wood, insisting they still ruled, insisting their power was not gone. Yet even as they argued, fear spread deeper, because messages poured in from the edges of the galaxy. Small colonies refused to pay tribute. Vassal species refused to send resources. Soldiers deserted their posts, choosing instead to hide or even swear loyalty to humanity. The balance of power had shifted overnight, and nothing the council said could change it. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the void, the human warship moved slowly, deliberately, its engines glowing faintly as it glided past the ruins of the armada. Survivors who watched from crippled ships described the scene in whispers, their voices shaking, saying the warship felt less like a machine and more like a god, its silence heavier than thunder, its presence more terrifying than death itself. It did not chase the survivors, it did not speak again, but its very silence became the loudest message of all: the humans were in control now. On distant worlds, rebellions began. Flags of the council were torn down, statues toppled, and new voices rose calling for freedom under the protection of humanity. For the first time in living memory, the council's authority meant nothing. The arrogance that had filled their hall for centuries was gone, replaced by dread and confusion. The once proud rulers now looked over their shoulders, fearing the shadow of a single warship that had proven their weakness to the entire galaxy. In their desperation, they sent envoys to gather allies, but even their closest partners turned away, unwilling to tie themselves to a sinking throne. Many secretly reached out to humanity instead, hoping to be spared when the humans revealed their next move. In the hall, the council sat in bitter silence, each member trapped between fear and pride, knowing their age of rule had ended but too arrogant to admit it aloud. The galaxy no longer belonged to them, and they knew it. Somewhere beyond the stars, humans had spoken with fire, and the galaxy had listened. The council's arrogance was shattered forever, and in its place only one truth remained: humanity had risen, and nothing would ever be the same again. The galaxy would never forget the day the council fell silent, for in that silence the age of arrogance ended and the age of humanity began, and though the warship had spoken little, its presence spoke louder than all the council's boasts, its silence heavier than all their threats, and across the stars beings of every shape and size turned their eyes toward Earth with a mix of fear and awe. In the shattered council hall, the leaders gathered one last time, their golden walls feeling like a tomb instead of a throne, their voices hushed as they faced the truth they had tried so long to deny. Some called for surrender, others for revenge, but all of them knew deep inside that their power was gone, broken by a single ship and the will of a race they had mocked. Then came the moment that sealed their fate, for as the debates raged and fear thickened, the chamber was filled with a new transmission, not from one of their fleets but from the warship itself, the human voice echoing clear and unshaken across every channel in the galaxy. Bow or burn. The words were simple, sharp as a blade, and none could ignore them. In colonies far away, crowds erupted with cheers, not of fear but of hope, for they saw in humanity the strength they had prayed for, the strength to stand against centuries of oppression. On stations long enslaved by council demands, workers threw down their tools and raised banners painted with the blue and green of Earth. On frontier worlds once forgotten, children spoke the name of humanity as though it were a legend come alive. The warship had not just shattered the council's pride, it had given the galaxy a choice, and the galaxy chose to believe in the humans. The council, broken and trembling, finally bent their heads, each arrogant ruler forced to kneel, their voices weak as they swore loyalty to the very race they had once mocked as children. The image of that kneeling council spread like fire, carried across the stars by every channel, every screen, every whisper, until no one could doubt that the old rulers had fallen. Humanity had risen, and their rise was not gentle, not quiet, but undeniable. Yet the humans did not gloat, did not laugh, did not mock as the council once had. Instead their warship remained silent, its engines glowing faintly as it hovered above the wreckage of broken fleets, a silent guardian and a silent warning. The message was clear: respect would be given to Earth, or destruction would follow. And so the galaxy obeyed. Treaties were signed, tribute reversed, borders redrawn. Smaller species who had once lived in fear now stood tall, their voices louder under the shadow of the human alliance. Where the council had ruled with chains, the humans ruled with fear and respect, and for many it was enough. Legends grew quickly around the warship, stories whispered of how it was only the first of many, how Earth had hidden entire fleets in the dark, waiting, ready to appear if challenged again. No one knew if the rumors were true, but none dared test them. Even the bravest admirals lowered their weapons when the thought of humanity entered their minds. The galaxy had learned in one terrible day what it meant to underestimate mankind, and it was a lesson none would forget. Back on Earth, the people watched as news poured in, watched as their flags spread across stars, watched as their once small world was suddenly at the center of everything, and pride filled their hearts, but also caution, for they knew the eyes of the galaxy now rested on them, waiting to see what path they would choose. Humanity stood on the edge of legend, feared by enemies, praised by allies, remembered forever as the race that rose from mockery to mastery with the arrival of a single warship. The council's arrogance was gone, the old order was broken, and a new chapter had begun, a chapter written not in gold and laughter but in silence, fire, and the unshakable will of Earth. Humanity had risen, and the stars themselves bowed before them.